Hi everyone. I hope you are having a wonderful, wonderful Monday. I am back to get again, as is usual, for a Monday night with a new gorgeous bundle of products from Brutus Monroe. We are going to create a whiteout card. And well, I'm going to get started, and this bundle might seem to be kind of different than what you might have been expecting when you hear the term whiteout card. Trust me, you're going to love the end result. So for today's bundle, we have some gorgeous crystal bling. Let me make sure we can get in here. There we go. So we have this gorgeous crystal bling. How beautiful is that? We have lots of embossing powders, so we're going to use 3 embossing powders tonight. We have Jade, which is going to add a little pop of color. We're only going to use this for a sentiment, and actually the sentiment for tonight is going to be an add-in or an add-on to your bundle for this evening, and I will make sure that that information is in the description box for you. So we have Jade, we have Icicle, we have Pearl. We're going to use all 3. We also have a gorgeous Chroma Glaze color in Opal. We have Perfect Blend card panels, card bases. So we're going to make, and we are going to do something really fun with this card base too. We have a stencil. This is the Funky Fun Mixed Media Stencil. And then this is where it gets interesting. So for our die set tonight that is in the bundle, we have the Sign Me Up die. Now, of course, you can make all of these beautiful little sign images. So from this die set, we're actually going to use this piece, this piece, this piece, this piece. And these 4 pieces, just those 4 dies, we are going to mix them with some other products and in our bundle and create gorgeous kind of snow flurry whiteout type of a background, which you'll see, and that's going to be amazing too. The last product in our bundle tonight is some of this super cool embossing glaze. I'm going to show you a couple of fun ways that we can use this product as well. We are going to start our project today with the thing that's going to take the longest to dry, and that is the Chroma Glaze. So I've attached one of the Perfect Blend panels to the back of my cardstock. And now I'm just going to go ahead and we are going to put a layer of the Opal Chroma Glaze on top of this. So I firmly believe that when you use mixed media, it has an expiration date and you should always use it liberally, especially through a stencil, because you're going to get the best results most of the time, especially when you're dealing with something thick. Like a nice paste, let's get a little lift with that paste. Let's get a little bit of dimension. And we're doing our layout today or our card today is going to be white on white on white. So we really want to be able to kind of see all the different things we're going to do. Opal Chroma Mist is really subtle and super interesting and fun to use. It gives this kind of holographic sort of finish when it is dry, so it looks really neat and fun. And this particular stencil was just giving me all the snowy blizzard whiteout effects with this pattern. I really wanted to create something that looked snowy and wintry and beautiful, but that wasn't your typical snowflake. Something that was a little bit different. So I'm going to peel this off very carefully. And then we're going to set this aside and let it dry completely while we go ahead and make some of the other elements for our card project today. While that panel dries, the next step is to die cut tons and tons of these gorgeous little sparkles. So I am going to take this entire 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 sheet. I'm going to take just these 4 little sparkles, and these are the only dies we're going to use from the Sign Me Up die set. But they're so cute. We're going to take all 4 of them, and we're going to die cut this entire panel with as many of these fun little snowflakes as we can get. And then through the magic of TV, we don't have to watch me die cut those snowflakes over and over and over again. So here is what we have. I have a set of snowflakes that I've kind of pushed off to the side. We're going to use those as single layer snowflakes. For the rest of the snowflakes on here, I am going to use my wet glue, and I'm going to stack these snowflakes on top of each other. I'm just stacking too high and then lining them up to create a more dimensional snowflake. This is a super fun and easy technique when you want to add a little dimension to a project, but you don't necessarily want to use a bunch of foam tape, right? So this is going to give us a little bit of lift. These snowflakes are super fiddly, so I didn't want to have another type of adhesive. Would have been, really hard to do. But this is easy. So we're just going to take our glue. We're going to pop the snowflake below, and we're going to stack them right on top of each other. Also, Gina K Pick and Stick tool works really well for this. I also think that the new glue from Brutus Monroe with the fuzzy top will work really well, would work really, really well for this technique too. I've not gotten a bottle of that yet. It's on my list of things to do. I need to get a cart together and get an order in over there, some new products. But I've just been busy. When I get home from vacation, I will. So this is really kind of tedious. I'm just going to stack these dies on top of each other and continue on here. And then through the magic of TV, I'm not going to make you watch me do this because, again, I'm going to do the same thing over and over and over again. And I'm going to end up making 8 of these little twinkles in addition to all of the other ones that I have that are just a single layer. The next step I have for you is heat embossing. So I'm going to take the Icicle and Pearl embossing powder, which is part of our bundle for this evening. And I'm going to dip our snowflakes, our little twinkles, into the embossing powder and then heat emboss. You can see here my Icicle embossing powder is actually in an upcycled Scoozies candy jar. I have slowly but surely been moving my embossing powders that I use for primarily mixed media purposes into these candy jars because it is a wider mouth jar, so I can do more of like the dipping, and that's what we're going to do today. So for all of the twinkles, I am going to paint on some of the embossing glaze that is part of the kit, and then I'm going to dip it into the embossing powder and then heat it. I'm going to utilize some reverse tweezers for this, but honestly, I swear they were more heartache than they were worth because I kept flinging these little twinkles everywhere. Which is kind of usual. Honestly, reverse tweezers and I, we are not friends. We're just not friends. So I did for all of those little twinkles I had die cut. Every one of them got painted with some of the embossing glaze, and then dipped into the embossing powder, and then heat set. This is a fabulous use for this embossing glaze. I will say this part I think worked out really, really well and made me so happy. This worked wonderfully. It was a lot less messy than when I try to, push the die cuts down into my embossing pad, which is how I usually will do this. Whereas this made it super, super easy. And also having that wide mouthed jar made it really easy as well. It did not make, the reverse tweezers didn't help, not in the least. But the rest of it worked really well. I did about half and half. So I tried to dip half of this twinkles in the pearl embossing powder and half the twinkles in the icicle embossing powder. The difference in them is that the icicle is more clear. It looks more glassy. It looks more icy, whereas the pearl has that pearlescent, more opaque finish to it. Since I was using white cardstock, they look different and there is a difference, but it is not immediately apparent. It's just if you look at them, you can tell. And if you have an untrained eye and have never used either embossing powder, you probably wouldn't tell the difference at all, but there is a subtle difference to them. Some of these were quite small and they did become a little bit fiddly after a while. So I just did a couple on camera, and I know that had this been a real live, I definitely would probably have done a bunch of them off camera and then come back. So I am not going to make you watch me do every single one of these, just a couple. And then we're going to start working on the next step for our card project tonight. And I did try to get you a close-up to camera, see if we could get them to, that I could show you the difference between the two. I'm not even sure that the difference shows up a whole lot on camera, but you can kind of see here how the two different ones look. They just have that kind of a glossy or pearlescent finish on them. So there they all are. And now we can go to the next part of our layout, or our card, which is going to go ahead and use some more of that embossing glaze and the heat embossing. And I'm going to go through this nice and quick for you. So I'm going to try flicking this embossing glaze. Now, I am not a flicker. No matter how hard I try, I don't flick. Recently, Heather said, tap the little brushy thing with another thing. And I was like, all right, let's try that. So I did. That didn't work either. So instead, I'm going to go ahead and dot the embossing glaze all over the front of my card. Now, this is my card panel. Because I am using embossing glaze, and if you know anything about embossing ink, you know that it does have that desire to almost dry like a watermark. So it wasn't until the next day when all of the oils and everything in the embossing ink had completely dry that the kind of watermark look disappeared, but it will disappear, so don't worry about that. This is where we're going to come and bring in some of that gorgeous jade color. So we are going to have a little bit of this pop of green on our project. And it's going to come in two places, once right here and once in the sentiment for our card. So remember, this is my card base. I am going ahead and doing this right over the entire card base. This is the first layer, so I didn't want to do too many. So I dotted the embossing glaze all over the card base. I'm going to hit it with my heat tool to melt the embossing powder. And then I'm going to come back in with the embossing glaze and do it again, dotting that embossing glaze all over the front of my card panel and just making little dots. And then I'm going to come in with the I think I come in next with either the icicle or the pearl. I'm not sure which one. We're going to do that one next. And again, coating the entire front of the card base and then using my heat tool until all of the embossing powder is smooth and melted. And then I'm going to come in one more time with my third embossing powder. Dot the embossing glaze all over the card and then coat it with our third embossing powder color, and then hitting it with my heat tool. And then we end up with these little kind of polka dots, or they can look like little snowflakes from far away. And I'm going to hit that with the heat tool too. You may have noticed that I kept away from the middle of the card. There's that big open piece right there that I didn't put any of the embossing glaze on, and that is because I know what my card design is going to be, and I know that I don't need to put any embossing glaze on to that area of the card. Now we have one more piece of our embossing that we need to do, and that is this. We need a sentiment for our card. I'm going to use the Sunny Sentiments die set. That would be like an add-on to this bundle tonight. I have the stamp set and the matching dies. This is one of my absolute favorite stamp sets. I think that the sentiments are just so all occasion and usable. They're perfect just for nice cards to send to friends or loved ones. I cannot stress enough how much I love Sunny Sentiments die set and the coordinating dies. So I am going to go ahead and stamp this with some embossing ink pad, and I'm also going to make sure to grab my little powder tool so we get a nice crisp clean embossing, no embossing powder going where it shouldn't go. I didn't care about this when I was doing the dots on the front of the card, but I do care about it when I'm stamping my sentiment. I'm also double checking my sizing to make sure my sentiment will fit in the area I want it to fit in. And then we're going to go ahead and I'm going to stamp this with the Brutus Monroe embossing ink. This is the ink pad. Make sure that I have like a nice, clean, crisp image. Looks good. And then I can go ahead and use the Jade embossing powder on it and heat set that. So we're going to use the Jade embossing powder, and that's going to give us another little pop of green on this layout. I love this Jade green embossing powder. I really like the color green. It's one of my favorites, and this one is just, it's lovely. See how lovely that is? Oh, gorgeous. And while it's not necessarily made for, winter time, it says winter to me. Like, it says warm and cozy. All those kind of jewel tones are the color tones that I think of during winter time. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit it with the heat tool, and then we can I'm going to die cut this sentiment. And while I'm die cutting, since I have to get my die cut machine out anyway, we're also going to use that circle from my stash. Now, I believe that this is a 2-inch circle die that I'm going to use. This is a die from my stash, just from a set of like circle nesting dies. So here is our sentiment and our lovely metal die, and I'm going to just go ahead and die cut the sentiment first. To hold my dies in place, I just use some old washi tape. Since I also do a lot of scrapbooking, I have a lot of big rolls of washi tape that I feel like I'm never ever going to get used up. So I tend to make them work for me, and they're kind of like my little workhorse in my scrapbook room. So you can see how nicely that die cut out. We're going to set that aside. Now, here's the part I really want you to see. So I'm going to take my card base, and I'm going to open the card base up so it is flat on my cutting panel. And then I'm going to go ahead and kind of center the circle on what would be the open part of the card. So there is my circle. There's the base. And you can see there, I've opened my card base up, and we're going to cut right into the center. Remember when I said I didn't splatter or add the embossing glaze there? There's a reason I didn't send it there. It's because I knew I was going to cut the whole circle out. So when I run this through my die cut machine, I'm going to end up with a card with a hole in it, right? So it's going to be, it's going to have this little peekaboo area right on the card. And then when you close it and open it, you'll kind of, I'm not sure how to describe it. Maybe like a little window. So there's our card base now. Now we're going to take this. This is that dried piece of cardstock that we added the chroma glaze and the opal to. And I'm just going to find a place on this panel that I like. And I'm going to go ahead and die cut this too. So now we have a circle that is exactly like the same size. Exactly like, yeah, that's good English. Exactly the same size as our little peekaboo card panel. So we have the mixed media circle now, and we can use that. And we're going to build on top of it and kind of create our card. There are a lot of steps to this card, and there are a lot of different techniques and fun things going on with this card, but it looks so good at the end, you guys, like so good. Just you wait, it looks so good. So there is that circle piece, and I'm not gonna get rid of the other parts. I'm gonna keep that for other projects, other die cutting adventures.
Really, dude?
So now I believe we have all the pieces we need for our
Logan
card. We have done all the steps, and now we can take all those little pieces that we have die cut and heat embossed and mixed mediated and all those gorgeous things, and we're going to pull them all together into one project. I'm going to start with the mixed media circle. This is the circle that I had put the opal chroma mist on, and I'm going to set it inside of the circle on our card base. Now, because these circles are the same size, it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be, well, that's not true. It ended up being super easy. I thought it was going to be hard, like, to get the placement right. Honestly, I was like, because they're the same size, and I don't know, are they going to fit inside each other? No, probably not. So then I was like, I'm going to have to do something strange and, like, open up the card and, like, piece it all in there. But I was so wrong. And it just, it would fit inside because one's the negative and one's the positive. And, you know, you've already figured this out, I'm sure, but it took me a minute to kind of figure that out. So there is the little piece with the mixed media. Now I'm going to come in with some of Bruce Monroe's foam tape, which is like my favorite foam tape ever. And these are the small squares, and I'm actually going to have to cut them up even more, but I'm going to get full coverage on the back of this sentiment piece because I want to make sure it is nice and sturdy. It's going to be popped up, and it is on the front of our card, so it's the part that, you know, people are going to be touching and opening and closing, and it has that dimension, which is awesome. But also I need to make sure that there are no spaces that are going to dip, and that it's going to be nice and sturdy against
back, and I decided on using foam strips and not adding wet glue because that's how sticky these lovely foam strips are. They don't need glue, which I love, because some of my other ones would not have stuck to the mixed media without extra white glue. But these don't need the extra white glue, which is fabulous. I am going to use my scissors to get the backing paper off. Not because it's hard. Sometimes I can get the backing paper off with just my fingers and no problem. It comes off easy peasy, but this particular day, my fingers were a little bit on the not working side, so we are just going to pull that backing paper off and get the sentiment into place. And I put a lot of foam tape on there, and then I dropped it because, again, as stated previously, on the day that I created this card, my fingers were a little bit like, man, we don't want to work today. Okay, so I'm going to get that centered right onto my circle. Move it a little bit, although not much because the foam tape's already stuck. Okay, so how cute is this card looking, you guys? Okay, next up, we're going to grab all those little twinkle pieces that are now going to act like snowflakes, and I'm going to take my wet glue. Again, I have a teeny tiny nozzle. Initially I thought, well, I'll dot it onto the card like I would with my crystals, but I wanted to make sure that I was getting the glue on the little tips of the little twinkle pieces, because otherwise it's gonna lift. Like, see, this is where I'm kind of like, it's not gonna work. We're not gonna be able to adhere these the way we adhere crystal pieces, because those little tails and smudgy bits are going to, the little delicate pieces on the edges are gonna pop up, and I really want to make sure that they're in place. So instead I'm gonna flip all of these over. So these are the types of projects I love to do, but they are fiddly. I love card projects with lots of steps and lots of layers and lots of little details. I am a big advocate for little details. Those are my favorite parts. And everyone, some people love to stamp, some people love to emboss, some people like to be messy and throw things on their cards, and I sort of do too. But my favorite part of creating a card or a scrapbook layout, my absolute favorite part, is this part right here. Adding all of these little details. So finding just the right spot for each of these little twinkle pieces. And I know that this does not make for the most interesting filming, right? Like, so much of this card, as it turned out, was just me doing my absolute favorite things, which is all the little details. And that's the tedious stuff. Like, I love to fussy cut. I love to start with a sketch or an idea in my head and figuring out all the little steps I have to take to get to the part where I can put all those little details together and turn it into something amazing. So I'm not the quick and simple girl. I'm not the clean and simple girl. But when it comes to like adding all these little twinkle pieces, and then we're going to add all the little gems on top of it, and pulling together all those different elements that we did separately, the opal chroma glaze first on the panel, and then thinking, well, let's play with our card base a little bit. Let's turn it into something special. All of that stuff is the stuff that I really, 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 really love. But when you're recording it or filming it for a live or video or like anything else, it is sort of boring. So you're going to watch me just sit here and glue. And this is the part where I would usually go ahead and check out the comments while I do it, see what everyone's talking about, to chat with you guys if you have any questions about any of my process here. And again, if you do, I hopefully will be back home and able to hop on. Well, even if I'm not back home, hopefully I'll be able to hop on and kind of keep an eye on how the live goes to be able to answer any of your questions. So now's the time to pop your questions into the description box below so that I can answer them or help you find products. Add links if you want to grab the Sunny Sentiment stamp set and dies, or the bundle, or this fabulous Gina K tool. So why don't we talk about my Gina K pick and stick tool? So I have been a huge fan of these little wax tip tools for a really, really long time. I thought that I had purchased like the Mercedes of wax tip tools, and I got a Crystal Katana, which is kind of like at the time that I bought it, right? It was like the gold standard. Then I listened to Christopher and he's like, you need a Gina K pick and stick tool. So I got it. Got one from the store and it's fabulous. It is pretty awesome, I have to say. I do like it 100% more than my Crystal Katana, which is amazing to me. And part of the reason I really like it is because it's like a pen, like it's long and thin. The Crystal Katana is a little bulky. This one's kind of long and thin. I also like that it has the covers, because I used to have to be a little careful with my wax tip, making sure that it didn't like bang against stuff and things like that. And oh, look, I am now coating this entire card front with crystals. So much bling, all of the bling. And here is some interesting facts. So if when you do the embossing glaze and the embossing powder, you have some pieces that don't quite emboss the way you like, if you have some spots where you don't have perfect circles and things kind of went a little smudgy, you can cover it with the twinkles, or you can also cover it with the crystals that are in the case. So incredibly forgiving. And we are just going to coat the whole front of this card. I absolutely love how this card turned out, and I hope you do too. I will be back again next Monday with a new bundle live, and I hope you really enjoyed this. We used a lot of products in some new, different, fun ways. We created something that is very wintry and sparkly without it being wintry.